What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some very important factors involving NIO and what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break down this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon in just about 2 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market, at least moving forward. I just want to mention to everyone that for NIO, we have a very important catalyst for next week. We have their deliveries coming out, and this will affect the way the share price ends up moving. Now, for the short term, I am seeing that NIO is looking kind of bearish with a nice little rejection right over here. We are potentially going to be dipping even lower, but I just want to make it very clear that even if we do end up dipping lower, we have to be always remember that it's not the end of the world necessarily, because we have some very important catalysts coming out for the week. And if deliveries go very, very well, if they meet the expectations for not just the month of June, but also the second quarter, there's going to be a very, very big bounce. If we do the opposite, if we get a big rejection and we end up getting very, very lackluster deliveries, then I'll be looking for a bigger dip all the way back down to 3.5. So I'll be watching to see how the deliveries look. I'm going to try to be optimistic approaching this report, and we will just have to wait and see, because that's going to be the biggest catalyst. However, approaching deliveries, there might see a little bit more downside, so we'll see how that goes, and then we'll watch and see how that ends up affecting things. Now, the quarter just ended, and you guys can see that AI trades are up about 14.5%, but the S&P 500 is closed a little bit lower. And for the quarter, it was still decent overall, but we'll have to see how things develop moving forward. For more pieces of data, we just have some global manufacturing reports on Monday. We have the ISM data coming out on Wednesday. That's going to be very important for inflation and employment. And then finally, the market's going to be closed on Thursday for the 4th of July here in the USA. And then for Friday, we have even more data. Besides that, fear is what's driving the markets. That's making up the majority of our sentiment. And when it comes to the overall earnings, there's not really much coming out for next week, because it's going to be the 4th of July week. The earnings will get serious starting as soon as I think it's going to be Friday of the 12th of July. So that's going to be the week after next week. So in about 2 weeks from now, that's when earnings season starts. And then the big banks will cause like a lot of volatility. So I think that's going to have the biggest factor. As far as NIO goes, there's been some talk right over here about how NIO has the MSME week. It's going to be held very, very soon. And whatever's announced is going to cause some very, very interesting volatility. NIO is going to once again be having a lot of constituents over there. They're going to be talking a lot about what they're trying to do to improve their quality and also their sustainable practices. That's very important for their vision. Moving forward, guys, don't forget that NIO is also opening another NIO house in Germany, which is good news. And short volume is also increasing, excuse me, as we have the overall volume going up just a bit. We have a neutral rating from Bank of America Securities, and we also have the price-price ratio kind of dipping a little bit lower. Besides that, I just want to make it very clear that there's a lot of volatility right now, especially on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I think it's going to be a very crazy Tuesday once we have our deliveries out. And I can't wait to see what else is announced. So what do I see for NIO? Honestly, guys, it's not looking too good. We got 2 big red days in a row, and it's continuing to fall. After getting a nice rejection right over here, after getting this rejection, failing to reclaim our 200 EMA in this fake cup that was forming, I was hoping this imbalance would fill, but ended up getting a big rejection instead. So unfortunately, this does have more potential to dip looking at the daily chart. I think we could end up coming down to fill this gap entirely and make our way very close to the low 4s before we try to see some consolidation. My prediction is we dip a little bit lower, but there's a big but. We're going to get a massive bounce or an even bigger drop depending on deliveries. So will we drop lower? Yes, I think we will drop a little bit lower. But once deliveries come out, we will see if NIO does very well. If they knock it out of the park, NIO could be running right back up. If deliveries are very lackluster and poor, NIO could get a big rug pull and continue to fall towards the lower 3s. So it's all going to depend on deliveries. I think that we're going to dip a little bit, and then we'll have to see what the big reaction is at least after that. For SPY, I just wanted to mention that SPY is looking a little bit weak on the daily time frame. We did try to pump again from a kind of like a double top, and we rejected here. So it does look to me like it's going to try to dip a little lower if we lose 543. So I'm going to be watching that for next week. If we end up losing that key support, we did attempt to push up higher, but just know that we have kind of like a double top like structure. It also depends if we could lose our 50 EMA. If we do lose this, I'll be looking for a dip. If we hold this, we could try to rebound. As of right now, we're kind of in the middle, but I am seeing some weakness right over here. So that being said, guys, I want to make it very clear that as far as the market goes, there's a little bit of weakness that's developing on the charts, and this could lead to a big change as well. So this may lead to a bit of a dip if we lose the support, but there's no sign yet, so I'll be watching for that going into next week for confirmation. Nvidia, it's still looking a little bit weak. We had this big drop. We made a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So we're still kind of shifting, and this does look a little bit weaker. Could this be forming a flag? It's also a possibility, but I'm not seeing signs of that quite yet. So the best thing to do is just be very patient with this trend and give this all the time it needs. So with the way that this is moving, I'm going to clear out some of these lines just to make this a little bit less messy. But I just want to make it clear that for now, we're going to be watching these levels right over here. I'll have to watch and see how we end up reacting to these key levels. I think that Nvidia could be forming a flag here, technically speaking. It is very possible, but I'll be watching to see if we if we end up maintaining this structure like this. This could be the new flag that's forming, and we could be watching to see if it ends up continuing to develop like this. So if it continues on this flag, there could be an attempt to break out coming later, but I'm not counting on it quite yet. I think earnings will have a big effect on this, not to mention other factors. So we're on a bit of a downtrend. Nvidia could drip a little bit lower, but then we'll see if we get a bounce or not. For Tesla could dip a little bit lower. The 4 hours kind of turning, so it might dip a bit, make its way back up to about the mid 190s, and kind of shuffle for a little bit. But then don't worry about Monday, because when we get deliveries coming out, I believe on Tuesday, there's going to be a big move, and this thing could continue to run. If deliveries are decent, we could be looking for a big move all the way up to 220. If we get, not so good deliveries, Tesla will be coming back down to about the 180s. So I don't know what's going to happen. It depends on deliveries. But nonetheless, the chart still looks very bullish on Tesla. It still looks like it could run quite a bit more. We will see what deliveries look like. That's going to be a big catalyst. So I'm going to be very patient with that. For Bitcoin, we have a double top leg structure. We ended up kind of rejecting right here. So I'm going to be watching to see if we could try to hold this support right here. If we end up losing 60,000, we're going to be retesting the low and getting a big rejection. If we try to bounce, we'll be looking for a retest of this imbalance at 61,000. As of right now, we're seeing some weakness, and it does look like it may dip lower. The QQQ is looking the same. Might retest 477. If we lose this, we'll be looking for a bigger dip. If we're bullish, we want to see it break past 480, so we'll just have to wait and see. For we this is Aapl. We have a nice double top leg structure. If we end up losing 209, we'll be dipping lower. And if not, we're going to just continue to wait and see how it goes. So I'll be waiting to see if we end up losing 209, there's going to be a bigger dip coming, and that could lead to a bigger sell-off. But I'll wait and see if that ends up being the case. So just be very careful with Aapl. For a few more, we also have Super Micro. We have a nice head and shoulders like structure, so I'm seeing some weakness on this chart. If we end up losing basically this 8-15 area, we'll be dipping all the way down to this imbalance towards 780. So it's still looking kind of weak, and we'll have to give this a little bit more time. With that being said, guys, we also have Coinbase. Coinbase is on a bit of a downtrend. We could end up rejecting here. If we end up losing support at 220, we'll be looking for a bigger dip towards 215. And we'll just have to see how things go, at least moving forward. For Amazon's kind of rejecting here. If we lose 192, there's going to be a bigger dip. If we hold this, we could try to rebound, but there is a little bit of weakness. Meta, Meta is also kind of rejecting here. If we end up losing 504, there's going to be a big rejection all the way down to this imbalance. And that could lead us to 498. So with that being said, I'll talk more about the rest of these tickers later on, but just know the market is showing some signs that it might dip a little bit. We have to watch for confirmation on SPY and the QQQ, but NIO of all things still shows weakness, and there's a good chance it's going to dip lower, approaching its deliveries. And then once deliveries comes out, we will see if we get a big bounce or not. That's going to depend on a lot of different factors. Excuse me. So with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day, and I will see you guys very soon on the next one. I would say on Sunday. So I'm going to be taking a break on Saturday. You're not going to hear from me. I'll be back on Sunday to talk about the markets. Until then, take care, guys, and peace out.